Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the major, Austin CS Major 2025, the first ever major with 32 teams. Of these 32 teams, 5 of them will be representing NACS. Now, some of you might not like how I categorize some of these teams as NACS. I don't really care. So this video is kind of going to act as your introduction into the 5 North American Counter-Strike teams that are going to be fighting at the Austin Major. So since this is a new format for us, guys, if you do enjoy the video, please leave a like, leave a comment down below if you like it, or maybe something similar that you'd like to see in this format. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, all that good stuff. To crash course you real quick into the major, we're going to go over the format real fast. Basically, what's going to happen is there's going to be 16 teams in the first stage, and they're going to play each other, and then there's 8 teams from that. And then those 8 teams move on to play 8 more teams that are already qualified. And then the 8 teams from that are going to play 8 more teams. And then we're going to work our way into an 8-team final. Starts with best of ones. Every single advancing match or elimination match will always be played in a best of 3. And you always play teams with the same record. So if you're 1-0 and you win your first best of 1, you play other teams that are 1-0. So we're just focusing on the NA teams. We have Complexity, Wildcard, Liquid, M80, Energy. Now, Liquid qualified to stage 3 automatically, and M80 qualified to stage 2. Energy, Cole, and Wildcard had to play in something called the MRQ online to qualify for stage 1 of the major, which obviously they all did. That's why we're talking about them right now. We're going to talk today about today's video sponsor, CS.money. So for those of you that have watched my stream for a while, know that CS.money's worked with me for a very long time, and I've always used their site. They have fast trades. I'm usually in and out of the site in probably like 5 minutes. I don't even think there's been a time where I've looked up a skin and they don't have it. Sometimes you have to do like, a couple filters to find the right skin, but it just takes a few minutes and you can find anything you ever want on there. Last but not least, they do any payment method you could want. They got card, PayPal, crypto, you're good to go. Now, something some of you might not be as familiar with, they do now have also a marketplace where you can do peer-to-peer, has lower prices, and there's discounts on there. They also, if you just don't want the hassle of anything, you can instant sell and cash out, and you just have to click the icon in the top right. I would greatly appreciate if you guys do a trade on that website, that you use my link that'll be in the description below. I also want to just add a little side note, guys. Whether it is this site or any site that is a trading marketplace site, be very careful. Ideally, if you have a sponsored link similar to like mine right now from somebody you trust, make sure you're always clicking on, the safe sites and not accidentally getting fished and going to a different one and losing all your inventory. That's the last thing anybody wants. Now let's get you back into the video. We talk a lot about Liquid on my streams and on the Clips and Highlights channel all the time, but the roster is Twist, Ultimate, Nerds, Shuhei, who they just recently got, Naf, and they no longer have their previous coach. They have their analyst who's now standing in as coach, might be full-time coach. I think that's kind of like a we'll see how this goes type situation. The roles kind of work like Naf is an anchor, Shuhei is the IGL. Nerds is kind of like that X Factor wildcard guy that will also anchor sometimes on CT sides, depends on the sites. Ultimate is the Opper, and Twist, similar to Nerds, they kind of share different positions and similar play styles where they both pick and choose when they want to be aggressive and look to create openings for the team. To me, Liquid lives and dies by the Twist Nerds win condition. Like, these two are the heaviest hitters on the team. They're the most talented players on the team, and they have like the highest ceiling. They went from Shuhei 0 wins and 0 maps to immediately making playoffs in the very next event. Clearly, they are getting better. There are things that I think might still limit them in making like a playoff run, for example. But I do think that this team already looks better than they did at the start, and I think they have a much better makeup of like how they can actually win games rather than just like hoping and praying it all comes together. They really do have a nice little 1-2 with Twist and Nerds. They're basically just Anubis merchants right now, which is good that they even have a map that they can play like that. But being brutally honest, like that's kind of where things get tricky for Liquid, is they don't really have a second map that they can like rely on. Anubis is their bread and butter, and yeah, they still take losses on it, but their win rates can be a little skewed at times, and they're still trying to figure out if they want to be like a Dust 2 team, an Inferno team, an Ancient team. It does feel like tournament to tournament that like it just changes what they're good at. I still think that Liquid, because of their experience compared to the other 4 teams that we're talking about in this video, are probably going to have the best international chances in the major to like make a run to playoffs. These guys have all played, and a couple of them have really made some crazy runs in majors at different times and they have a lot of experience compared to the other rosters and their counterparts. So I still think they're the front runner, despite probably having a weaker map pool, that they can still maybe sneak their way into the playoffs with some really strong individual performances. Let's talk about M80. Getting into the roster, we have Sin, their IGL. We have Slacks, their Opper. Swisher is kind of their anchor glue guy support. Lake is the star rifler that came in to replace Malbs when Malbs went to G2, and Rec, their anchor. That is also their coach, and he's been there for a while. But to me, the standout player for M80's got to be Lake. Lake is they live and die on Lake's performance, I feel like, individually when they play the big boy teams. What I mean by that is, you know, your Mongols, your G2, your FaZe, your anybody in that like top 10 to 15 range. If Lake is not there hitting hard, they are not in the game. The good news is he's usually picking up one or two of those maps, and then they kind of need the supporting cast to step in. The other aspect that M80 really needs is Slacks. Slacks is such a good hopper when he is on. He is in that perfect sweet spot of not consistent enough to basically be an elite hopper, but when he has his peaks, he looks like one. M80 is a little bit tricky because this core has been together for a while. They do have a lot of experience together as a unit, maybe not so much tier 1 experience, but they just have played a lot of Counter-Strike together. They're probably going to have a lot of reps and know what each other like to do. The problem is if you're not having a lot of success like them, they're not doing bad, they're just not doing great. So if you have done a bunch of different things together, you can sometimes like let your own head get in the way of things that haven't worked out in the past, and it can be your own worst enemy in a lot of these cases. I feel like at times they show up and they look like they're just in tip-top shape and they're ready to play well, but they kind of don't get a chance to play as many events as, for example, Liquid, because of their world ranking. You know, online matches, and they go to a LAN and they're playing some of the higher up teams. And they're competitive, but they're not winning. So being competitive is cool and all, but when you're in the major and we're talking about, you know, where we expect this team to be and what we think they can do, I think there's a good chance they don't advance out of stage 2, which is where they're going to start. I think that's where they're going to stay. M80's map pool is tricky because they are really good on a lot of popular maps that a lot of these top teams are going to play. The problem is like I keep hammering home, they don't play the tier 1 teams as much. So these maps are all maps that these teams will play, and they can get outclassed on them versus the very, very top teams. So they're never really uncomfortable, but they're not really able to pick anything where it's like, for sure, we're winning this map. You are going to lose it. We are the better team on this map. They play Ancient, Mirage, Dust 2. Like, Dust 2, Ancient are great maps for them. The problem is pretty much all the top teams play Dust 2, Ancient. I think at the end of the day, this roster's, I believe, first major, if I'm remembering correctly. It's the first M80 stickers we're getting in the game. This is going to be like, I'm not saying the players are going to be content. I'm not saying that they can't make a run. But what I am saying is this is kind of what M80's goal was probably to have at the start of the year, was to be in this position, and they made it. Being realistic, I don't see them advancing out of this stage. I think it's unlikely, especially with their map pool and the teams that they're going to have to face. It's going to be a tricky situation. We'll talk about complexity. Their team is 6C, who's their new pickup, Grim, Halzerk, JT, Nyx. And then the important caveat here is they will more than likely have a sub, unfortunately, for Halzerk due to visa issues, which is just really never something anybody wants to see, and that sub will be Junior. Their new coach, who's kind of more of like, I think temporary, is but not, we don't really know where that's going, is going to be a Dren. Halzerk, Opper, JT's the IGL, absolute GOAT. Nyx is usually their anchor kind of lurk type player, and 6E is usually the glue guy holding it all together. And also when you see them, he is for sure like one of the hype men of the team, and he really tries to deliver like a good team environment, which I think has helped Grim's performance dramatically. And that's kind of how complexity breaks down as a whole. Because of the ending of the PGL event that they performed incredibly well at, if the cutoff point for the VRS standings was like a week later, they would have actually gotten Liquid spot. That's how well they performed. They played a Yala Compass qualifier into PGL Bucharest. And in PGL Bucharest, they ended up taking down, I think, like 3 top 10 teams and 1 top 5 team in their Bucharest run. They were taking out everyone. They got rid of their coach before they did this run. And they kind of just, it seemed like that little bit of a change, maybe for whatever reason. I think it's less the coach was the problem and more so this is all mental. Whatever you could do to maybe try to hit that mental reset for the players, I think it helped. And I think it's just important to note because at the start of the year, they literally just got farmed. They didn't win. I don't even know if I remember, I don't think they even took a map off any international competition for a couple months there. If we were actually just purely going off results, Complexity out of these 5 teams that we're talking about for this year has the best international results out of these 5 teams. I'm a bit biased in the coaching department, but I think losing Holzerk for Junior is just going to be really tough. Junior's a very talented opper, but when it comes to international CS, he's always struggled, and I'm not going to even beat around the bush. He's had a hard time. The good news for Complexity, though, is unironically, Grim is the best North American rifler of 2025, and that guy is on fire. Twist is on a 1.09. Elige is a 1.12. Grim is a 1.21 rating. So now let's get into Complexity's map pool. And this is where things get a little interesting. Is they're quite good on Anubis. I'd say they're pretty good on Ancient, and they're large Train merchants. Train is their best map. The problem with Train being your best map is not a lot of teams will let it through. I think especially in the earlier stages, with the right set of circumstances, Grim can be enough to get them to the next stage. Complexity as a unit, when you watch them play, knows what they're about, know what they want to do, and for better or for worse, they are committed to it. And I think that with with Grim maintaining his form, if they can get Nyx or Sixy to just have a little bit elevated like individual gameplay, which both of them at different times have shown they can do, there is chance for them to advance to at least stage 2. Being realistic, I think that's about as far as they're going to end up going. But I think even that would be an incredible achievement for them, especially considering how this year started for them. And I think they know they can do it, even with Holzerk out and Junior in. Depending on the matchups, if they can stay in that Anubis, Nuke, Ancient wheelhouse, that's where they live and thrive. And if somebody doesn't ban Train against them, it's almost a guaranteed win for them. So next up, we got Wildcard. So for Wildcard, we got Stanislaw, Sonic, Fuzi, everybody calls them something different, Susp, and JBA. Stanislaw is the IGL. Sonic is like their secondary opper / rifler, rotate, kind of a glue. Sonic wears a lot of different hats on this team, but he can do it all. He's played for a while. Fuzi is the opper. Susp is kind of usually their I'm going to lock it down alongside JBA on the other side of the map. If you ask a North American CS fan, diehard, everybody's going to say JBA, JBA, JBA. And I do think that is warranted. I think JBA is not only probably the highest ceiling on the team, and I am incredibly biased in this take, but I think that when he is playing well, similar to M80, this team just looks so much different. It's hard. It's hard to say. That's like the strength of this roster is that they have so many pieces that really have shown that they can be incredibly powerful in their roles whenever needed. But that's kind of also the weakness is they don't really all do it together. For me, though, personally, I think like for them to be dangerous in this major, I'm going to go with Stanislaw, actually. His calling has been actually fantastic this year and last year. And I think it made the team overperform expectations and then allowed players to become more confident in themselves after they saw some of the results they were able to place up. So to me, Stanislaw is actually probably the most important person in Wildcard because there are very few rosters where you watch so many rounds, a team just feel like they have completely outmaneuvered or outread or out-game planned another team. And I think Stanislaw is a big part of that. So for Wildcard to like really have success right now, they've had a couple maps that they've shown recent success on, but then they also get bullied by teams on that map. So example, they implement a little bit of Train in there, but then Complexity, who we just talked about being a great Train team, kind of dumpstered them on it. Wildcard is trying to evolve their map pool. They're good on Nuke. They like to play Inferno, and they're pretty good on it. The similarities that they have with M80 are pretty high in the sense that the maps that Wildcard are good on, if they play the top teams or some of the better teams or higher ranked teams, those teams have usually a slight edge on them and not the other way around. They don't have a map that they can just fully be like, that's the one that you're uncomfortable on and I'm super comfortable on. They just have a lot of maps that they are very good at. They have the potential to advance the next stage. They have the players to do it. They have everything they need, just like last time. But I think with the down performance they've had this year after what they did at last major, I think they're kind of on a downward trend. I think this is the type of roster where I wouldn't be surprised if I saw them make roster moves at this major, unless there was something where they make a similar run again, because at the moment, it just seems like they've been trending downwards. Being brutally honest, I think that it's less likely this team advances. I think it's very likely that after the major, we see a different looking wild card going into the second half of 2025. Now, last not least, NRG. So we got OC on the op. We got Hex, who is basically I'd say he's their heaviest hitter. He's like their lake. And then Bro will sometimes anchor, sometimes be in the mix. He is their all-arounder. George is usually anchoring a bomb site incredibly well, and Nitro is the IGL. I have a lot of respect, actually, for the NRG organization. They had this roster for a little while now. They were failing to qualify for the major, and they stuck with this team, man. They stuck with this team. They could have bowed out of CS. I wouldn't even have blamed them. You know, they were making slight changes. Then they got George, right? The George pickup was great. And then they got Bro in, which was completely unexpected to me. You know, I did not expect to see Danish rifler from Astralis Bro, who previously played for Monty, joining NRG and moving to Texas. And man, I'm so glad they did, because he really rounded out this roster so nicely. He gave them something that they didn't have before, which is just reliability in those bomb sites that I think they were really lacking. The go-to and to watch players on NRG, I'm going to go with Hex, and then probably either George or Bro. Or you know what? Just give me all three, because I'm too indecisive and I like the roster too much. Recently, the results have been pretty good. They farm mostly the NA teams. Domestically, they haven't had any issues. They've been farming my tournament, the Revival series that I put on with Jason Lake and Complexity. They did play in Frag Vegas. They lost to NIP, but it was a close series. NRG has a strong map pool of Train and Train when it comes to tier 1 competition in international CS. They do have other maps that they like to play, but we're going to have to see those maps be successful on an international stage. They were quite good internationally on Train, and then they struggled as soon as they couldn't play Train. That was basically their situation. Is you play NRG on Train, you lose, and then as soon as somebody banned Train, well, NRG didn't look as good. I think NRG will have more experience coming into this major than they did before. However, this is their first major as a 5 together. Of these 5 North American teams, I put them as the dark horse. NRG could completely bomb out, but man, if these guys get hot with how their individual form has been, I could see them having a better performance in Wildcard. I could see them even getting into Stage 2 and giving people in Stage 2 a hard time. Will they? I don't know. To conclude this video a bit, I think Liquid, at the end of the day, has the best chance of making playoffs. I'm looking at Complexity to have the second best performance. You know, the double-edged sword there is that they don't have Halzerk. So M80 is a weird one because they just don't have as many reps. I think that they're always going to give us a solid performance with how stable the core is. I see them being a really prickly team in Stage 2 that can give everybody a hard time. Wildcard, unfortunately, while I'm happy they made the major, I just think that this team is in a tricky spot right now where they're just worse than they were last year. They haven't really had good results this year, and I think changes are looming. And then with NRG, I think NRG out of these rosters actually has some of the highest upside out of all of them. But there's so many variables that go into that. I think they need so many things to go right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is the first time I've done something like this, so bear with me if any of it's a little rough. I appreciate it. If you guys did enjoy the new format and the new video, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see another type of idea or topic in this format, because I really enjoyed making it. You know, I enjoyed it. Yeah. If you guys are also going to be in Austin, I will be there. I'll be co-streaming. Would love to see you guys there. Make sure you stop by and say hi.